Walking across an entire sea on dry land sounds like a pure miracle, and that is how the Bible describes the moment. Moses led the Hebrews in their escape from Egypt. But what if nature played a part? Scientists have simulated in the lab that winds of the right speed and direction could, in fact, push back the waters for a limited time. Was Moses' miracle a rare natural phenomenon utilized at the exact right moment? Discover the scientific hypotheses that challenge the supernatural. The Epic of the Exodus, one of the foundational pillars of Judeo-Christian faith and one of the oldest accounts of a people's liberation, is a story of epic proportions, where the divine grandly manifests to intervene in human history. The biblical book bearing the name of this event describes the dramatic flight of the Israelites from oppression and slavery in Egypt. Under the charismatic leadership of Moses, a central figure chosen by God to guide his people to the promised land. The journey, marked by devastating plagues unleashed upon Egypt and numerous signs of divine providence, culminates in one of the most spectacular and unforgettable moments of the narrative, the crossing of the Red Sea. The Hebrews, an exhausted and fearful people, find themselves trapped in a situation of imminent despair. Before them, the impassable waters of the Red Sea. Behind them, the powerful and relentless Egyptian army, led by Pharaoh himself, advances to recapture them. It is at this point of no return, where human logic would dictate their end, that divine intervention manifests in a grandiose way. The Bible recounts that, faced with the people's outcry and Moses' anguish, the latter stretches his staff over the waters. What follows is an event that defies natural comprehension. The waters divide, opening a dry path in the middle of the sea. Millions of people, men, women, and children, along with their flocks, cross safely, treading on dry ground where there had previously been deep water. Subsequently, when the Egyptians, blinded by fury and pursuit, attempt to follow the same path, thus sealing the Hebrews' liberation and the definitive defeat of their oppressors. This passage is not merely a crucial event in religious history. It transcends time, becoming a universal symbol of hope, resilience, liberation, and unwavering faith in the face of adversity. For believers, it is an irrefutable miracle, an unequivocal demonstration of God's supreme power suspending natural laws to fulfill His purposes. However, the magnitude and uniqueness of the event, which defy known physical laws, have always sparked curiosity and questioning beyond the realm of faith. Historians and archaeologists have debated the exact location and geographical conditions of the time for generations, while scientists have more recently delved into the narrative, seeking to understand whether natural phenomena, however extraordinary, could have played a crucial role in this event. The central theme of this script, the parting of the Red Sea by wind, is the very essence of this dilemma that permeates human history, the coexistence and, at times, the tension between the supernatural and the natural, between faith and science. It is from this solid foundation, the biblical narrative in its miraculous purity, and its immeasurable impact on culture and religion, that the fundamental question arises, driving us to explore scientific possibilities and to uncover whether what is perceived as a miracle can, in fact, have a counterpart or an explanation rooted in the world of physical laws, which inspires millions. Earth, our dynamic and complex planet, is a stage for a myriad of natural phenomena that, due to their rarity, intensity, or visual and physical impact, often leave us in awe and, at times, in fear. From the devastating fury of tsunamis engulfing coastal cities and volcanic eruptions reshaping landscapes, to the imposing beauty of aurora borealis painting the sky and the concentrated force of tornadoes, nature demonstrates an impressive ability to shape environments and influence life on a global scale. However, there are less known, yet equally powerful and fascinating phenomena that may offer surprising keys to unlocking ancient mysteries, such as the enigmatic parting of the Red Sea. One such crucial concept for our investigation is wind set-down. Imagine the colossal and unceasing force of extremely strong and persistent winds blowing from a consistent direction over a vast body of water, especially in shallow areas. This continuous force can, theoretically, exert such intense pressure on the water's surface that it pushes the water away from a specific area, revealing the dry seabed for a limited period. This phenomenon is not merely theoretical speculation. It is known and documented in shallower bodies of water, such as coastal lagoons, estuaries, large lakes, and even in canals and rivers. Although typically on much smaller scales than described in the Bible, there are documented cases of water receding in response to extreme winds, providing a precedent and a physical basis for the hypothesis. For example, in large, shallow lakes like Lake Erie, intense winds can literally pile up water at one end, significantly lowering the level at the other. Other phenomena to consider include storm surges, which, while usually involving an increase in sea level due to low atmospheric pressure and strong winds, can, under very specific conditions and in particular coastal topographies, create complex effects that influence water recession or flow. The ingenuity of exploring these phenomena lies in their ability to make us question the limits of what we consider possible or impossible for nature. They show us that behind seemingly inexplicable events, there may be physical laws operating in their most extreme and rare configurations. The Red Sea, and more specifically the Gulf of Suez and adjacent areas that could have been the stage of the Exodus, possess geographical characteristics that, under certain extreme conditions and in antiquity, could have favored the occurrence of a wind set-down event. Geological evidence and paleogeographical studies suggest that the coastal region millennia ago had a different configuration than today, with the presence of vast reed marshes, shallow lagoons, and interconnected streams that link to the main body of the Red Sea or its arms. These characteristics would make an event like wind set-down much more probable compared to the deep, unimpeded topography of the Red Sea today. The complexity of natural systems, with their unpredictable interactions and colossal forces, suggests that what seemed purely supernatural to one era may have its roots in a rare and precise conjunction of natural events. Illustrating the central theme with these examples does not discredit the religious narrative, but allows us to see how extraordinary events in nature can, at times, be misinterpreted or attributed exclusively to mystical causes, when, in fact, they are the manifestation of natural forces operating at their extreme limits, utilized or observed at a moment of profound historical and religious significance, a true miracle of nature. The 21st century has brought with it technological tools that have revolutionized our ability to investigate past events, no matter how ancient and mysterious they may be. In the field of hydrodynamics and climatology, advancements in computational modeling and numerical simulations have allowed scientists to empirically and controllably test the feasibility of the wind set-down hypothesis regarding the mythical parting of the Red Sea. Instead of merely theorizing about the power of winds, it is now possible to create complex virtual environments that replicate ancient conditions and observe how the laws of physics would manifest. One of the most notable and influential studies in this field was conducted by a team of scientists from the National Center for Atmospheric Research and the University of Colorado at Boulder, led by researcher Carl Drews. They employed a sophisticated computational water flow model, which simulates fluid dynamics on a large scale, to investigate the hypothetical scenario of the crossing. The starting point was crucial. Instead of considering the Red Sea in its vast current extent, the researchers focused on detailed topographical data from the Nile Delta region, specifically an area believed to be an ancient coastal lagoon that connected to the Red Sea or one of its arms, possibly what was known as Lake Tanis, or an ancient branch of the Nile that flowed into this area. This area is characterized by being shallower and prone to water level fluctuations. The results of this model were not only surprising, but offered a remarkably plausible explanation for the biblical event from a natural perspective. The simulation demonstrated that a strong and constant wind, with velocities close to 60 miles per hour, blowing continuously for a period of about 10 to 12 hours, could have generated the desired effect of pushing back the waters. This force and persistence would have pushed the waters of the lagoon and an adjacent ancient river back, creating a dry land path of considerable proportions. The model indicated that this passage could have extended for approximately 3 to 4 kilometers in length and up to 5 kilometers in width, an area more than sufficient for the safe crossing of thousands of people, as described in the Bible. Crucially, the simulation also calculated that this land bridge would remain exposed for about 4 hours, a time considered adequate for the passage of a large group of refugees. The most dramatic and convergent aspect with the biblical narrative is what would happen next. As soon as the wind diminished in intensity, changed direction, or simply ceased, the waters would return abruptly and with great speed, submerging anyone in their path. This scenario strikingly resonates with the biblical description of the destruction of the Egyptian army, which was engulfed by the returning waters. This model is based on well-established physical principles such as fluid dynamics, the interaction between wind and the water surface, and the characteristics of the region's bathymetry. The goal of this research is by no means to discredit the religious narrative or the faith of those who believe in a divine miracle. On the contrary, it explores whether a plausible natural explanation could coexist with the biblical account, suggesting that divine providence might have manifested through the laws of nature, orchestrating the perfect conditions for the liberation of his people. By detailing the underlying mechanisms of wind set-down through computational evidence, the study offers a fascinating glimpse into how wind, through its force and persistence, could have operated to create the dry path, providing an explanation based on natural laws and patterns that, at a crucial moment in history, coincided in an extraordinary way. The ability to simulate such an event in the lab strengthens the central theme hypothesis, the parting of the Red Sea by wind, as a concrete scientific possibility worthy of study and reflection. The plausibility of the hypothesis that the wind parted the Red Sea does not rest solely on the existence of strong winds, but on the precise and synchronized combination of several essential variables. Without the simultaneous and favorable occurrence of each of these factors, the formation and maintenance of a dry path on the seabed of a body of water like the Red Sea would be unlikely or impossible. Understanding these variables is crucial to unraveling the enigma. Firstly, the wind speed and direction are absolutely crucial and interdependent factors. Hydrodynamic models and computational simulations are unanimous in indicating that a wind of almost storm-like proportions, of rare intensity and constancy, would be indispensable. It is estimated that winds of approximately 96 kilometers per hour would be necessary, blowing continuously and without interruption for an extended period. More than intensity, the wind direction is vital. It would need to blow from a very specific direction, likely from the east or northeast, in order to push the water perpendicularly to the coast in a shallow bay or lagoon, maximizing the set-down effect. Moderate, intermittent, or frequently changing winds simply would not have the sustained force to push such a vast body of water for a sufficient time for the crossing. The constant pressure exerted by the wind on the water surface would be the primary engine of the phenomenon. Secondly, the underwater topography of the Red Sea at the time of the Exodus is a determining factor and, perhaps, the most debated. Research suggests that the event would not have occurred in the deepest and widest part of the current sea, but rather in a relatively shallow region, possibly an arm of the sea, a coastal lagoon, or a vast marsh connected to the Red Sea. The bathymetry, that is, the depth and relief of the seabed, would need to be gently sloping, without large barriers, deep valleys, or irregular reliefs that would prevent the uniform receding of the water. There is increasing geological, paleogeographical, and archaeological evidence indicating that the coastal geography of the region may have been significantly different millennia ago. The presence of vast reed marshes, shallow lagoons, and interconnected streams that connected to the main body of the Red Sea or its arms would make a wind-set-down event much more probable compared to the deep and unimpeded topography of the Red Sea today. The water would be pushed out of these shallow areas, exposing the dry seabed. Finally, the time duration of the wind is equally vital for the feasibility of the event and its congruence with the biblical narrative. Simulations show that the wind would need to blow for hours on end to effectively push the water away and then persist long enough to allow the safe crossing of thousands of people. Estimates vary, but periods of 4 to 12 hours of continuous wind are considered ideal for the opening and maintenance of the dry path. The most dramatic aspect, and one that aligns perfectly with the biblical description, is what would happen when the wind diminished or ceased, the abrupt and rapid return of the waters. A decrease in wind intensity, a sudden change in its direction, or simply the time elapsed after the wind ceased would result in the violent and potentially catastrophic return of the waters, an event that, strikingly, is consistent with the biblical description of the destruction of the Egyptian army, which was engulfed by the returning waters. This extraordinary precision in the conjunction of these three factors, wind with exact force and direction, favorable underwater topography, and adequate duration of time, is what makes the event so singular and, at the same time, plausible from a natural perspective. The in-depth study of these essential variables illuminates a specific aspect of the central theme, dissecting the particularities that would make the parting of the Red Sea by winds a rare occurrence, but not impossible. It is the intricate dance of these natural forces, operating in perfect synchronicity and at the most crucial moment, that allows us to envision a possible explanation for one of history's longest-standing and most debated mysteries. The Red Sea in its current configuration is a vast and imposing body of water of invaluable geopolitical and ecological importance. It is characterized by its impressive depths, which reach over 2,000 meters in some points, its lush marine ecosystems rich in coral reefs, a paradise for divers and marine biologists, and by being one of the most strategic and busy shipping routes on the planet, connecting the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean through the vital Suez Canal. Under these current geographical conditions, the idea that winds could part it from end to end, creating a dry path in its depths, is in fact unfeasible and lacks any scientific support. The average depths and the vast expanse of water far exceed what would be necessary for large-scale wind-set-down event. However, the central theme of this script, the parting of the Red Sea by wind, is not limited to the present geography, but invites us on a fascinating journey through time. The key to scientific plausibility lies in considering the paleogeographical conditions of the region millennia ago, during the period when the Exodus is believed to have occurred. Geological and archaeological studies indicate that the coastline and bathymetry of the Red Sea and its surroundings were significantly different in antiquity. The presence of ancient branches of the Nile that extended to the coast, vast reed marshes, and shallow coastal lagoons connected to the main body of the sea make the scenario of a wind set-down much more conceivable in a specific and limited area rather than the entire sea. The historical reinterpretation of the Exodus in light of these scientific hypotheses is by no means intended to demystify faith or discredit the religious narrative. On the contrary, it seeks to enrich our understanding of ancient events, offering a perspective where science and religion may not be mutually exclusive, but complementary and even harmonious. The possibility of an extraordinary natural phenomenon being interpreted as a divine miracle does not diminish the faith of those who believe in the intervention of a higher power. Instead, it may suggest that divine providence manifests in ways that respect and operate through the laws of nature, rather than defying them. In this view, God would not need to break his own physical laws to perform a miracle. He could instead orchestrate natural conditions so precisely, at the exact time and place, that the result would be, to the human observer, indistinguishable from a direct supernatural intervention. The perfect synchronicity between desperate human need and the occurrence of a rare natural phenomenon of great magnitude can, in itself, be the true miracle. This perspective allows the biblical narrative to be viewed in a new light, where the sacred and the natural intertwine in a profound and meaningful way. The search for scientific explanations for events described in ancient religious texts is not an attempt to prove or disprove the existence of God or the veracity of faith. Instead, it is a quest for a more complete and multifaceted understanding of the human experience, our relationship with the natural world, and how ancient cultures perceived and interpreted events around them, often attributing incomprehensible natural forces to the divine realm. The discussion surrounding the parting of the Red Sea serves as an excellent example of how science and religion can coexist in a respectful dialogue, offering different, yet equally valid, lenses through which we can view the world and its mysteries. The evolution of the central theme throughout history is the very evolution of human knowledge, which seeks to reconcile millennia-old and deeply rooted narratives with the discoveries and insights of contemporary sciences, keeping alive the fascination with an event that indelibly marked human history and the formation of a faith. Even though advancements in science and sophisticated computer simulations offer a plausible and physically coherent explanation for the parting of the Red Sea by winds, it is fundamental that the journey of scientific exploration humbly bows to the limits of human understanding and the very tools we employ. Models, by their very nature, are simplifications of complex reality. However detailed and precise they may be, they can never perfectly recreate the exact conditions of an event that occurred millennia ago, in a past where meteorological records were non-existent and topography differed significantly from what we observe today. The variables involved are countless, and each simplification carries a degree of uncertainty. The wind-set-down hypothesis, while scientifically robust in its theoretical principles and validated by simulations, still depends on a conjunction of highly improbable factors to have occurred exactly as described in the biblical narrative. It would require winds of extraordinary force and duration to blow from an exact and constant direction, in a specific and geologically favorable area of the sea, and for all of this to happen precisely at the moment when a large group of people, fleeing deadly persecution, desperately needed an escape route. The probability of all these variables aligning perfectly in time and space is so statistically minuscule that, for some, the improbability itself is a type of miracle, a manifestation of divine providence, orchestrating natural forces for a greater crucial purpose. For believers, the gap between the scientific explanation and the biblical description, which emphasizes direct and supernatural divine intervention with absolute power over nature, remains vast. For them, the event firmly remains within the realm of the supernatural, a testament to God's omnipotence and sovereignty that transcends any earthly or naturalistic explanation. The challenge of science in this context is not to deny faith or attempt to disprove a deep-seated belief, but rather to offer an alternative perspective that invites reflection, dialogue, and a broader understanding of the complexity of history and natural phenomena. The beauty of this debate lies precisely in its ability to make us ponder what is truly comprehensible by human reason, and, what may forever transcend our capacity for analysis and measurement. The central theme, the parting of the Red Sea, continues to be a fascinating enigma that invites us to explore the thin boundaries between the natural and the divine, between science and faith. It reminds us that, however much we advance in knowledge, however much we unravel the universe's secrets through our investigations and technologies, there will always be room for mystery and for the wonder of the unexplainable. Ultimately, the narrative of the Exodus and the crossing of the Red Sea, whether interpreted as a literal miracle or an extraordinarily opportune natural event, continues to inspire and pique human curiosity, a constant invitation to deep reflection on the vastness of the universe and the forces that govern it, whether they are within our grasp of understanding or, perhaps forever, beyond it. The story, therefore, does not conclude with a single definitive answer, but expands into multiple possibilities, keeping alive the awe for an event that defies time, logic, and comprehension. The story of the Red Sea, whether as an unquestionable divine miracle or a rare natural phenomenon, continues to fascinate us and provoke reflection. Science offers us a powerful lens to try to understand the mechanisms of the world, but faith invites us to contemplate what lies beyond what we can measure and prove. In the end, what do you believe truly happened on that epic day?